Good evening, and while we are in the midst of covering a whirlwind election campaign, tonight something else deserves our immediate attention here at the top of the broadcast. While the calendar may tell us we're days away from Halloween and the November election for that matter, it is still hurricane season, and Hurricane Sandy has experienced what forecasters are calling a stunning increase in size and intensity. This late-season storm has already caused furious flooding in Jamaica, damage in Cuba, we're told lots of it, also in Haiti. And because it has such scary potential to affect more than 50 million Americans along all of the East Coast population centers, if it indeed combines with another storm and makes U.S. landfall, as is now considered likely, it deserves our attention. We begin our coverage tonight with Weather Channel meteorologist Jim Cantore on Singer Island in Florida. Jim, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Brian. This is just the kind of the forerunner of what we're going to deal with all the way up the eastern seaboard, as you mentioned here. We've been using words like hybrid storm and perfect storm, which is essentially a winter storm and a tropical system combining into one big monster. Let's lay it out for you right now on what we know. First of all, the cone. Friday, it looks like it's going to be closest to Florida here. We're going to deal with more waves, some heavy rain all the way up and down the beaches here. Expect erosion there. Saturday and Sunday, it continues to move north. Notice still, as an 80-mile-an-hour Category 1 hurricane, that means North Carolina and southern Virginia are in its sights. Then Monday and Tuesday is the big day for the Northeast, as this storm has a chance to come inland as a very powerful storm where the wind field will spread out for hundreds of miles, and that has big-time ramifications we're going to talk about. Let's paint the two most possible scenarios that we have right now for you. Here's scenario number one. The center of the storm, all these circles represent isobars, lines of constant pressure. The tighter they are together, the more wind we're going to deal with here. The smallest circle right there around Ocean City is where the storm comes ashore. That means huge erosion of the Jersey Shore, possible flooding in New York City, lower Manhattan and the Battery, right where I was for Irene, major power losses all the way from D.C. to New York City and well inland. Scenario number two here. Flooding and surge, Long Island Sound, Narragansett and Buzzards Bay, damage and power losses to many across New York State and much of New England. But regardless, both scenarios here mean major disruptions in transportation and commerce, major losses of power here and power damage. And Brian, really both of these scenarios paint a multi-million-dollar or even billion-dollar disaster. We got to keep a close eye on this, as it will infect, as you mentioned, millions of people.
Jim, there don't seem to be any real good options here. We're all going to keep an eye on the Weather Channel. Jim Cantore, as we just begin the coverage of this storm as it makes its way up the East Coast.